Namo Buddhaya. Good evening to everyone on this Vesak full moon eve from Dhammadharini Monastery here beneath Sonoma Mountain in Northern California. And welcome to all who are joining together for this time of special Vesak meditation and Dhamma reflection. So some of you who are joining together regularly join for our Tuesday evening meditation and Dhamma reflection programs. So I'd just like to let you know that this evening, the way the program works is going to be slightly different. You may have noticed that it's a little longer than normal on the schedule. This is bonus time for it being Vesak. And if you need to leave early, of course, welcome to do so. Also to let you know that we'll be offering some time for questions and Dhamma discussion or shared Dhamma reflection together. So if you have a question that you would like to share, welcome. You should be able to see tech support on here somewhere. So you're welcome to put your questions into the chat during the question time. So we're going to begin with just a couple of minutes of silent meditation together. And then I'll begin with the Dhamma talk, and then we'll have some more time of meditation together. So a couple of minutes of meditation now, intro and Dhamma talk, time for Q&A and discussion, and then we'll be closing with meditation this evening, followed by blessing just in the last 5 minutes or so. Just a moment. Okay, back with you now, and we'll be beginning with a few minutes of silent meditation. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So when I chant these words, I feel like something very deep in the heart, like passing through the ages. Well, not only a few years in this life, but it seems like passing through the centuries, passing through the millennia, and really, truly, this chant has passed through all that time, and the recollection of the Buddha that comes together with it as well. Over more than 2,600 years. We're celebrating Vesak 2565. That's because of counting from the time of the Buddha's parinibbana rather than the time of the Buddha's birth. So I've been invited to speak this evening, or whatever time it is for you, but here on the Vesak full moon eve, I've been invited to speak about being supported by the qualities of the Buddha. And I'm delighted to speak about this. It's a topic very near to my heart. We often talk about the suttas and discuss the Buddha's teaching in, let's say, like quite an intellectual way. And there's a way that we can be supported by the qualities of the Buddha in a way that's quite intellectual and quite, say, like quite rational. And then, of course, as human beings, we have other qualities, heart qualities, intuitive awareness, just the sense of the knowing, sometimes called just the jnana, at least in the Thai forest traditions. And all of these are our faculties as human beings. So Buddhism may be rational, but it's not only rational. So I'd like to speak a little bit more this evening about the other qualities, which I think are so important for anyone who is going to really live this path in a way that's like pervading and involving, bringing together their whole being as a human being, not just some aspects. And I know being in monastic life, then this is one of the things that really comes up, because having been a lay practitioner myself before entering into monastic life, then my life was really quite compartmentalized. So I had my meditation group time, and even like the day-long weekend retreat time, and also there was my work time, my school time, my home time, my transit time, time with family. All of these things, in a way, I mean, they were scheduled, and somehow they were in my mind also compartmentalized. And even it can be as if we're bringing different parts of ourselves to engage in these different situations. And certainly at the time that I had scheduled for meditation, then I really, tried to bring my all to the meditation at that time. But I was strongly encouraged to really look out for what kinds of effects the meditation was having in other times, particularly the time in transit. I was in Portland and then riding the train between my school and work, the local light rail, and then also, like lunchtime and break in the university schedule, and then, some of the home time. So like bringing some kind of qualities or awareness, sensitivity to the meditation, then into these different times, as well as the teaching. And so I began to do that. It wasn't until I had gone for a year-ending retreat where we were meant to be practicing the whole time, except for when we were asleep, like from the very first moment that we woke up until the last moment that we went to sleep, every single day. Now that was a whole different situation, whole different world. I mean, doing absolutely every activity, and wow, what a difference that made. But then I felt there was the opportunity then to really be practicing in a way that I would call wholeheartedly, with my whole being. And that seemed like coming alive in a whole other way that I had never really experienced in this life before. Maybe sometimes, like for a few hours, being out in nature in the back 40 with my horse, with the trees and the earth and the flowing water, sparkling sunshine, transitory sparkles. Maybe there was sometimes then a feeling like 100% wholly present, like this is the whole world and everything is unified in this. Yes, that was an experience outdoors in nature, not being together with other people or other more general standard human activities. But entering into monastic life not so long after that, then it's not all 100% retreat time all the time, as certainly some of you may know, and then the habits to be behaving according to our habits in other circumstances, whether it was cooking and preparing food, or whether it was some kind of communications, or whatever it might be. So the habits to compartmentalize and in a way then like to, it doesn't seem exactly like fragmenting one's body and feelings and mind, but really like separating out different aspects of ourselves, putting them into different boxes, different times. So the monastic life, of course, offers the opportunity and the challenge to live much more wholeheartedly and fully in absolutely everything that one is doing in this whole life path of practice. Or it offers the invitation. But of course, that's not exclusively a monastic invitation. That was never given exclusively for the monastics. This is an open invitation to absolutely everyone. And why not? Why not? Why not live so fully? So this evening, I'm going to be speaking about some of the heart qualities, about some kinds of faith in Buddhism, and some of the practices that are very much, at least for me, they've very much been a part of the being supported by the qualities of the Buddha. So some of us might know religious people who live lives that they call a life of prayer. And perhaps they are praying some different prayer, for a particular time each day, or a highly religious person, perhaps they're praying over and over again. And we hear stories of people in different religions also experiencing things that seem practically miraculous related to their faith and related to their prayer. Does Buddhism have anything like that? In some parts of Buddhism, like in the rational West, might not think so. I think that that's something else, like something superstitious, or not part of the rational Buddhism. In my experience, though, living in Asia and monastic life and living within Buddhist cultures in the local context, and here in the United States, in the West, or in Europe, or in Australia and New Zealand as well, then we know the inside story that in Buddhism there are likewise so many of such kinds of stories. In fact, even the awakening stories that involve these kinds of qualities. So is this outside of Buddhism? Did the Buddha teach about faith? In fact, the Buddha taught about faith. The Buddha taught about faith as a faculty and faith as a power. And even the Buddha recognized faith followers, what were called faith followers. Those even who realized stream entry through experiences related to the power of their faith in the Buddha, faith in the Dhamma, faith in the Sangha. So, in fact, Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati, and Sanghanusati, you might recognize the word sati and think about sati as mindfulness. But would you call Buddhanusati mindfulness of the Buddha? In a way, it's proper. These kinds of anusati are called recollections often. Recollection of the Buddha, recollection of the Dhamma, recollection of the Sangha. So to use our power of recollection and memory to remember what is wholesome, beautiful, worthy, excellent on a timely basis in a way that's helpful for us, because we can remember all kinds of things, recollect and contemplate all kinds of things that then have very different impacts. It's like they lead us on different roads with very different effects. So the Buddha recommended even recollection of the qualities of the Buddha that we daily chant in our monastic life. The Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho. Recommended even to recollect this if one experiences fear, hair-raising, terror and dread, to not only to chant, but really to know the meaning and recollect the salient, excellent, admirable qualities of the Buddha. And especially for those of us who study the suttas, we may get a sense of, I would say, courage or encouragement. We feel the power and the strength of the teaching, of the clarity, of the honesty, of the people also who are coming and asking the questions, like, with their hair on fire, really the things that are most important to them in their lives, and the Buddha speaking to them, so forthrightly, so honestly, sometimes gradually building up in the suttas until like the full power of the Dhamma tap, the tap of the Dhamma stream is like just turned on in full. And, maybe we're talking about Dhammanusati at this point, but really it's talking about our sense of the Buddha, not only just the qualities of the Dhamma itself. And it seems like maybe we're talking about Sankhanusati here also. When we see in the suttas the people awakening, what kind of feeling do you experience when you come to the point in this story where someone awakens in their contact with the Buddha, in their contact with the Dhamma? How do you feel about that in your body, in your feelings and minds? Recollecting these feelings and letting them grow and expand and become strong until they pervade our entire bodies, our sense of our whole, like karmas of our body and our feelings and our mind. And we can see also some of the suttas, then the person listens and then they're like, oh, I'm busy, I need to go. Or, they just go humph and then turn around and depart. And how do you feel when that's what happens? Yes. If we think about the circumstances of our life and how we're meeting the circumstances of our life, we often may think, that's not Buddha, that's not Dhamma, that's not Sangha. But what if we were to be recollecting the Buddha and understand the qualities of the Buddha even more deeply than just the outline of a statue or of a painting, the ideas of something connected with the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and then the qualities of mind that are delimited and bound by time and space? What if we were to open it up a little bit more to, the people didn't think that was Buddha just because of that physical body and that physical form. It's what they sensed within that. And what is that? What is it that they sensed within that was so special? And that we like sensing into these qualities that we find in the Buddha and in the Buddha's Dhamma. And then when the Sangha members, the disciples of the Buddha, they're called Savikas, and they're also Arahantas, like the Buddha is an Arahanta. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yes, so they are also Arahantas. And they are also, when they awaken, they're also Buddhas. They're Savika Buddhas. That is, they realize their Buddhahood and their Arahanthood through connection with the Samma Sambuddha. So that has been sparked in a way through contact with the qualities of the Buddha in person himself, or the Dhamma, and or the awakened members of the Sangha. In this case, we're talking about awakened members of the Sangha, at least those who have entered the Arahanta path, who've entered the stream, so they're not considered just ordinary worldlings anymore. There's something very special that they've experienced that there's no going back from, no regressing. They're never going to be exactly like everyone else anymore. And it's something that some people are able to sense, that they may feel as palpable in a way that might even be, intellectually indescribable, but there's something in us that knows. And this is also called the quality of the Buddha, Buddhi, that knows, that quality that knows. And I'm not talking about a rarefied sense of self here. I'm just talking about the knowing quality, that quality of awareness that led the Buddha himself after his great awakening experience. When the merchants saw him, and then something about him looked so different and so special and so awesome. So they even asked him, "Are you a god?" Right? "Are you a deva? What? What are you? Are you a human being?" And what is it that they were sensing that was making them ask that question? And there's something in our heart that knows this. I say our heart or our mind, yes. And the Buddha said, "No, I'm not a deva. I'm Buddha," means I'm awake. So this quality of being awake, of awakened awareness, of knowing. Yes, so really like tuning into and touching into that quality. So in our monastic life, and not only our monastics, but built into the form of our monastic lives, we chant Namo Tassa many times. It's there in the beginning of our daily chanting, in the morning and the evening. Now, today we had our Uposatha observance, also our bhikkhunis together before our Uposatha observance. Then we chant Namo Tassa. When we chant blessing chanting, we chant Namo Tassa, and we're trained beforehand really like to look into and to contemplate the meaning and to concentrate our minds in that 3 times, like we're within 3 times of reciting it, we are supposed to get our heart and mind in the right place, unified, before we start chanting that sutta, before we start chanting that blessing chanting, not only individually ourselves, but also unified through our attunement to the sound. And also like the mind of the others who are chanting together. So it's something that's very personal and individual, but it's also something that then happens collectively within the Sangha together. And I know I've heard from some Sangha members before, it's like many times, they bowed, like 1, 2, 3, bowing up and down, bowing 1, 2, 3 again and again, like I did my duty, I bowed, and saying Namo Tassa Arahato something, what is it, how does it go, right? And like reciting that, and like I did my thing, and now I've recited through this text and I've performed my duty. And wow, I memorized it. Right? This kind of thing, or but there's a way of inhabiting it entirely differently. And over the years, I've heard several times from fellow Sangha members when they had the experience of like actually waking up in the midst of that chanting, even during the Namo Tassa part, where they then had the sense that the sound and the meaning and their bodies and their feelings and their minds and the Dhamma were all not separated, not dual, not different things, but they're all, I'll just say, not separated. Yeah, I don't want to say one or unified, and I'll tell you why. Because almost always when people talk about unification or talk about one, they think about that discursively or intellectually in comparison to 2 or in comparison to many. So there's the way that we can even think about one or think about unity as a kind of intellectual comparative fabrication. And that's not what I'm talking about. When one experiences in this kind of way, those intellectual comparative fabrications fall away. They disperse, they open up, and then one is left experiencing what we can experience when all of those have fallen away or opened up and disappeared. Yeah, some people say even this is samadhi. Samadhi, in terms of one of the translations of samadhi, is unification of mind. Yes, another common translation is absorption. And you say, well, absorbed into what? Your object of meditation, right? And if we're talking about this as being an active form of meditation, then you could say one has absorbed into one's object of meditation. But it doesn't necessarily seem really like that, unless you would say, okay, the tea that's steeping in the water, then has the tea absorbed into the water, or has the water absorbed into the tea? What is it when that cup of tea is fully steeped and like, it's not like more water in one part and more concentrated, more tea in another part, but it's like fully steeped. Yes, something like this. So we chant this Namo Tassa and we chant Iti Piso, and even during this time we've been walking and chanting Iti Piso. And in our monastic life on these lunar observance days, then at least in Thai culture, it's very traditional, also in Sri Lankan culture, to have time of walking, circumambulating the stupa or the hall where the Buddha is, or the Bodhi tree, and having time of walking meditation and chanting Iti Piso and contemplating the qualities of the Buddha, even over and over and over again. If you think about walking around a large parameter, then sometimes you chant Iti Piso many times to get around there 3 times. Yeah, so we do this over and over again, and one can do it like just to get over it, or when we're so skillful, you can find that you can even be making the sound of Iti Piso while you're actually thinking about something else. You've circumambulated halfway, and then your mouth is still making the words Iti Piso Bhagavam Arahang Samma Sambuddho, and then you're thinking about, oh gee, my knee is hurting and I'd really like to go lie down after this, and I'm going to soak my foot in some Epsom salts, and then I'm going to look at the full moon, and it's going to be lovely later on after I'm done with this walking and chanting, right? But you're still walking and chanting. So this is how we can trick ourselves. It's like how we can cheat ourselves. Really, no one else is cheating us, but we're cheating ourselves when we do that, when we're like not willing somehow to fully give ourselves to really deeply contemplating these qualities in the sense of, I'll say, unification of the body, the breath, the voice, the mind, the heart, the meaning, of course, and coming back to the meaning that's even beyond words, beyond the level of verbal fabrications. That's just this awakened knowing. So I'll tell you a story. This is a faith kind of story. So a few years ago, before we started Dhammadharini, I was in Bangkok, and I had been at Mahachulalongkorn Rajavidyalaya, Royal Thai Sangha University, and then someone offered us, several of the international monastics offered us a ride back to the monastery where we were staying, and it was evening, and that person had got an old, forgetting, was it a Mercedes-Benz or a Rolls-Royce, but it was like an antique collector's item, and they had renovated it. And so then they were wanting to offer the ride in their newly renovated, what's that kind of vehicle called? Old, huh? Classic, yes. Thank you. It's a classic. In the classic, this is Sangha mind here. I keep my brain actually off-sourced, backed up in many different locations, and I live together with them, and we can move together. And with you also. So it was a classic. And so then riding, this person actually had a quite high, they were retired, but they had quite a high level position. And so we understood when riding with this person that this person was used to having the right of way from their job previously, that they were now retired. But the vehicle that we were in did not have any special flashing lights, and it didn't have any special flags on it, and it didn't have a motorcade to be letting the other people know to stay out of the way. And so we were in the heavy evening Bangkok traffic. It was dark, and many lanes of roadway going in both directions. And I remember, starting to feel, I don't want to say nervous, but it was just the realization. And from the conversation, then I understood what the situation was. And that is, this person is used to having the right of way, but the other people don't know that. And just kind of cognizing, this may be dangerous. So, in such a circumstance, then what are you going to do, right? Various possibilities are there. But before I had a chance to think about it so much, then I saw that the driver was trying to turn across, maybe it's like 4 lanes of traffic. But the oncoming traffic, somehow I could see that oncoming traffic, that there was a vehicle that was not seeing this perhaps illegal turn that was they're just starting to make. And you know how time slows down sometimes in these kinds of circumstances. So then I saw oncoming traffic has not realized this turn is being made, and we're turning, and then just seeing like the other oncoming traffic then coming into the vehicle that I was in together with these other international monastics. And, these are things that can sometimes actually happen even faster than you can think anything. That was my experience of it. It's like just as fast as I could cognize, they're not going to be able to slow down in time. And this vehicle is in the path of the other vehicles. And then it's like something else kicked in that was no longer like the intellectual part. But there's also the part of my mind that I can remember seeing. There was another nun, a Meichi, who was sitting to me to the left, actually on the side that the oncoming traffic was. And she had a different experience, because she was looking at that and then she's like, ah, right? And like to grab onto the car was her response. And so somehow I was able to see all that clearly, while also recognizing at this point there's nothing else to do. And so I just relaxed, and my mind just automatically went to this itipiso. I didn't, not even time to fold my palms. And I mean, I didn't think about it, right? Maybe there was time to move my palms, but my mind, my heart just went to this itipiso bhagawa arahang, and to the quality of refuge. The quality of the refuge. What is it that makes the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the awakened Sangha, as we say in the chanting or in the suttas, a safe and secure refuge for all beings? How is that different than our mind, our heart, taking refuge in other things? Or it's not necessarily really in other things, but it's in other ways of fabricating our experience. Attaching to that, or trying to protect, or, wanting to get something, wanting to get rid of something, trying to bear with it. All of these various ways that we can show up and engage with our experience in the way that really, truly, we have fabricated it in our minds. Yes? Because there's our eyes and what we're seeing. There's our ears and what we're hearing, our nose and what we're smelling, our mouth, what we taste, our hands, our bodies, we feel the sense of touch. And yet, where is all of the experience happening? Where is the knowing happening? How is that happening, right? Why is it when I look at something and someone else looks at something, say it's a painting, or even this image here of the Buddha with the flowers, and you ask different people to describe it, and they'll describe it differently, and ask them, what do you feel about that? And they'll have, very different feelings about it. This is the fabrication that's our experience of ourself and the world. So even when we're talking about the Buddha, initially we're talking about fabrications also, whether it's visual. If we think about sound, some people like somehow, for the teaching of the Dhamma, we can't hear the Buddha's voice itself now, or maybe we can, but the people used to describe how amazing the Brahma voice, and so it's like their minds are catching the characteristics of the visual fabrications of the Buddha, or the sound of the Buddha. And then people also talked about like the ambiance or atmosphere of the Buddha's physical presence, like having a tangible, palpable presence, a somatic experience. It wasn't just visual or not only sight or sound, all these things through the senses. But the part where we find the safe and secure refuge for all beings, truly, properly in the Buddha's teaching, is it amongst these fabrications of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, body, or intellectual fabrications? Is the safe and secure refuge for all beings found amongst these? And the Buddha himself answered this question. He talked about this question. Yeah. So sometimes when the people were speaking in a very maybe it's not aggrandized, but like grandiose kind of way about how fantastic he looked and how great he sounded, and these kinds of things like this. And sometimes the Buddha replied by telling them, if you try to catch those things, grasp those things, then you miss truly what is actually Buddha. And we miss the refuge. I love looking at the images of the Buddha. Why? Actually, some of them I really don't like to look at. And I'll tell you why I don't like to look at them. Because I feel like somehow that artist somehow didn't capture the spirit. But I'm just using language. I don't mean spirit. But somehow they weren't able to convey. They didn't have a sense, or they didn't have the artistic talent to be able to convey that sense somehow of what is Buddha in their artistic creation. There's a form there that looks like it's in a meditation posture, but just in English, it's not the heart, but would say like it has no heart, or it doesn't have the spirit, like a living spirit of the Buddha, but it's all wrong language, Don't catch my language for this, because go for the meaning, not catching on the words, which are really all wrong to express this. So how can we sense that? What is it that we sense? And then how can we really open that up and allow our minds and hearts to take refuge in that? Not some other place, not some other time. Even the Buddha was asked, then, we say he taught about non-self, right? Anatta, we all know this. And yet the Buddha, when he was asked one time, did you really teach that there is no self? And then the Buddha actually at that time would not say that it's true to say that there's a self or there's not a self. And, the person wants to grasp something, right? It's like demanding, I really want to grasp something. And the Buddha is refusing that demand. So we can see in ourselves also how much we want to grasp something, and we think we've attained something and we're successful if we feel we have successfully grasped something, right? Oh, this is the big trick. So because it's through the non-grasping. Yeah, absolutely. Through the non-grasping that we can say release, let go, open up to the qualities of experience that can be experienced by human beings, sentient beings, when that grasping has been set down, opened up, released, set free. Yes, and this is where we can find what is called the true refuge. Why a true refuge? Because it's not bound up with time and space. It's not bound up with specific conditions. It's not bound up with needing anything, in form and feelings and perceptions, in impulses and memories and any of these things to be any particular way. It's not dealing with that. All of those things are ultimately unsatisfactory and cannot offer this level and type of refuge that our proper Buddhanusati, deep and proper Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati, and also Sanghanusati offer us. Recently, there's been the Theri festival and going through the Theri verses, and we sense in there as well. It's also Dhamma, of course. We're also talking about awakened beings, and there's something of that energy or life or spirit or heart of the awakened being, and the courage, the honesty, the forthrightness, the clarity that's there. Another way to approach it is to think, what is in common in all of these? What is shared at the heart of all of these? When we take away the story, we take away the forms, right? And what is that? And can we approach this directly? So sometimes with learning mindfulness of breathing, people find learning mindfulness of the breathing that as soon as they become aware of the breath, then they see their tendency to be kind of, fighting with the breath or grasping the breath, negotiating with the breath, trying to make the breath something. And yet the Buddha is saying, just watch it as it naturally is, mindful as you breathe in, mindful as you breathe out, rise and fall, right? And so you may have experienced also when you let go of trying to make it be anything else, how that's an opening, a letting go, a releasing to just be present. Yeah, so there's a clue here on how we can approach this. Not through the attending in a way that's trying to grasp or make or force or demand anything, but in the way that is just the opposite. Sometimes I think maybe in some of the great religious or spiritual traditions, what they're talking about in terms of surrender, sometimes that level, that depth of really letting go and opening up into another kind of awareness, sometimes I think they might be talking about something like this. Anyhow, in that car crash, although the old glass shattered into so many hundreds, if not 1,000 pieces, which I found embedded in my robes and embedded in the skin, all over the body somehow. But I wasn't that seriously injured. But then the other nun who was present, who had braced herself and was the first fast reaction was no, she got more hurt. And I considered about why this is so. What do you think about that? I had considered about this many years before, also as a teenager, when we went for the drinking party at the house with a lot of other teenagers. And then second floor, then one of the drunk teenagers fell off the balcony. They were completely drunk, and just on the balcony, and then laughing and talking, and somehow, just leaning over and just fell off, splat. And amazingly, they didn't die. And they weren't even that badly injured. And you think you fall from the second floor onto the driveway in the front, and anybody else should at least have some broken bones. Why didn't they have broken bones? Because they were so relaxed. But we're not recommending that kind of relaxation through numbing and ignorance. I mean, of course, it's why people drink and take drugs so often, is because they want to know how to relax and let go, but they don't know how to do so just themselves. And so they take the alcohol or they take the drugs to help them to relax and release and let go of the things and get out of all their fabrications about everything that's so stressful and painful and difficult, and all the contention that there may be, and sometimes even like to help them become present. I know I heard from somebody who smoked cigarettes, and like that's why they like to go and have a cigarette break, is somehow then, it was time for them breathing in with the drug that was in the tobacco. Then they felt like they just were able to just let go of everything and become present. But we don't need the drugs to do that. These things all have their harmful side effects, and many of them actually can make us even more stupid and foolish and confused. I mean, if you were relaxed and you were on the balcony and you weren't drunk, probably you wouldn't fall off from the second floor, right? This happens when people are just so intoxicated, and people do so many crazy, horrendous, utterly foolish and ignorant things when they're intoxicated like this. But we don't need these. We have what does not take any, of these kind of harmful side effects, and is not addicting in the same kind of way. We learn to release, relax, come to be present with the breath, the body, and the mind. And then if we're going to practice Buddhanusati. So during the time that I was in Thailand a few years ago, then I had some time walking around in the Northeast on walking pilgrimage, getting to sleep under trees with an umbrella and a net. And then, there were quite a lot of other like forest monks and those who also went on walking pilgrimages. And there were various practices of mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the breath. Sometimes on walking pilgrimage, some of the monks like memorized the whole Patimokkha, monastic discipline, and they would chant all 200 plus precepts over and over and over again while they were walking. Sometimes they chanted Iti Piso or Namo Tassa also while they were walking. But the favorite, I think, in the forest traditions in this regard was the chant of Buddho, Buddho. And you'd start with the breath, body and breath, and like Buddh on the in-breath and To on the out-breath. So we think this is Buddho, this is the word Buddha, Buddho, that's being recited over and over again like a mantra. The idea was first you take the sound, as with other kinds of chanting. You take the sound and then you're aware of the body and breath. And so the body, breath, and sound like become unified, but then you go to your understanding of the meaning of Buddho. And you can look at your intellectual understanding, the things you like about the Buddha, the things that you feel you have faith in, all of those things, but then you're asked to let go of the forms and the sentences and the words about those things. And what are they in your knowing underneath those forms, those words, those sentences? And then to really go to that and really attend to that and look into that, to take refuge in that together with the Buddho while you're breathing in and breathing out. And then at a particular point when you feel like, that's become like strong and clear, then letting go of the sound as well means letting go of the verbal form of even that word as well. So this is a powerful method many times that's been used by the meditators, and then developing in this kind of way. Then also, even they met the elephant on the path. cobra, strong rain, get soaked, sleeping outdoors, robes are soaked, all alone in the forest, in the dark, with the crashing lightning. Seriously, can you imagine being there like that? Yeah. I mean, these things happen to us also. You know, somehow something happens to your car in the middle of the night when you're driving somewhere, and then there's the storm and your car is not going, and there you are, you know, alone, sheltering in the rain. And you need to then deal with what's in your heart and that situation. So many things. You're with the people you love and they're dying. You yourself are dying. You yourself are in the car crash and you don't know what's going to happen. Suddenly your airplane starts descending, or you take and you eat something and suddenly you're going into anaphylactic shock. You realize there must have been something in here that I'm really allergic to. What was that I ate, right? All of these things, they happen to all of us anytime, any moment. And where do we turn our heart? We turn our heart in the ways that we're accustomed to, in the ways that we're habituated to, the way that we take refuge. We might not think about it as taking refuge, but the way that we respond to things or the way that we habitually react to things, that is our refuge. When we're coming up upon sense contact, whether it's seeing something, hearing something, smelling something, tasting something, touching something, thinking about something, these are the sense spaces, the sense contacts. When we're coming into contact with the senses, the bodily senses and the intellect, then how do we respond to that? Where do we go with it? How are we engaging or not engaging? Where is the refuge? Are these something different than the refuge? Or can we find the refuge right there in that? I remember that point of impact with that car and the sense of then all of the windows, because it's old style glass, not shatterproof glass, but all of the windows then imploding into the vehicle with the contact. And then like just release, let go to the heart of the refuge. Being with any of these other things in any other way, what's that going to do for me? Yeah, if it was you and you did that, what you know, if you think about it, don't you? What that would do for you, the pain and affliction that would cause. Yeah, I didn't feel any pain in that contact at that time. When we understand about this deeply, then also it helps with not only, it's not like courage rising to meet something, but it's something different. It's a kind of a fearlessness because we know that we have a kind of a protection. It's not a defense. It's not an offense. It's a different kind of a protection. We have a safe and secure refuge that is with us, that's not any other place or any other time. The safe and secure refuge of all beings. It doesn't have to do with self or other. None of these kinds of discriminations. It's beyond that, but not beyond in terms of being anywhere else. Always, 100% always, every single moment of awareness, every single moment that we're awake. We don't have to worry about the times when there's no awareness, really. We have no experience of that time, right? There's no active karma at that time, no intentions. Yeah, we're talking about when we're awake, when we're aware, how we can touch, be with contacts of body and feelings and mind and heart. So, Buddho, Thai forest tradition. So if you were to do a Google search, there are a number of the Dhammadharini books available on this. I don't mean to tell anyone to do anything. I'm just going over the things that we've learned, that we're trained in, and then also the kinds of experiences that we have, that we can then share, we can contemplate ourselves based upon how we work with these different ways of studying and approaching and practicing with Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Yes, with these treasures, the jewels. So I'd like to share with you one more during this time now. During my time that I lived in South Korea, there was a meditation tradition that was being taught there. Very deep and profound kind of essentialist meditation tradition. It's called in Korean called the Hwadu, and in Chinese pronounced Hua Tao, in Chinese Chan. You could say that this is a kind of Buddhanusati or Dhammanusati or Sanghanusati meditation, but within the tradition itself, Buddhanusati is called Yambol, which is a different word or different words compared to the Hwadu. The Hwadu, the Hwa, now I've been talking, and when we hear the Buddha's story, when we study the suttas, the records of all the members of the Sangha who have awakened, this is the story with words. Yes? And then the do, in the body we have the head, mouth. If we talk about a river, then the head or the mouth of the river is talking about where that river then emerges. We call it the source. Yes? So the Hwadu literally means to turn to the source. Then, the head, the mouth, related to these stories, the words that have been the basis or the form for us to get our ideas about the Buddha, the Dhamma, awakened members of the Sangha. So it means then to turn back or to reflect back, then to look to the source. So what is the source then? What is that? So then people will ask themselves that question. What is this? Starting with the words, just to turn and to direct their mind. And then when they understand that they are reflecting in this way, then to let go of the words that were just the finger pointing. So we talk about the finger pointing at the moon, and then once you've caught sight of the moon, you don't need to look at the finger anymore. In fact, that would be pointless, right? You would be missing the point to do that. So when we talk about looking at the moon or reflecting in this kind of way, the word reflection implies a kind of duality again. It implies a subject and an object. If we say there's like a reflection in the mirror, then there's the mirror, and then there's the person who's looking, right? But in this case, they say then that looking, that awareness, that seeing and knowing, then you turn it back on itself. So you turn the mirror back on itself. So this is like also when we talk about meditative absorption, when there's like if someone has a nimitta arise also, then there's the way that the person can see like the nimitta, and then it seems like they are looking at the nimitta, or a person is following their breath and they have the sense of themselves like watching the breath. So there's that sense of distance. And this is valuable. This is a valuable step or stage to be able to do that, because that helps us step back from things and get perspective on them and come out of like all our habitual attachments and reactions to things. And it gives us the space that we need to be able to do that. But once we've done that, and we're looking in this kind of way, and we have this space, then there's the way where we can then bring that like closer again. And then there's, something that's like can be called absorption or like penetration. Yes. Sometimes the awareness is compared to a light. Say like the light of awareness is then illuminating what we're seeing. Yes. Or it seems like the wrong analogy, but we know also like dead body doesn't hear, right? If there's no consciousness left around, if there's still consciousness hanging around, then even the dead body may hear. But it's not the body, it's the auditory consciousness that's hearing, right? But there's a way, even it's hard in English to give the right language to it, but it's like, the awareness is illuminating the sound, or the awareness is illuminating what's being seen, or the awareness is illuminating. It's the medium, like the consciousness that's the medium for what's being perceived. So now we're talking about consciousness and perception. But there's the way to step, it's like to go into it even more deeply. So this we say is then with that awareness, that very like awake awareness, then being related to our sense of, Buddha, then to turn that back like into itself. So sometimes people have a sense with direction of doing that, but then they have a perception of being on the edge of going out. And then that can bring up fear and stop that process. But just say, don't be afraid of that. Yeah. So it's like if you were about to step through a door and then you turn around and you're like about to step back, but when you look back, everything is gone or something like this, right? Except maybe some people might perceive there being only the like measureless, limitless radiance or something, absolute, pure, pristine emptiness, absolutely nothing at all, or even beyond that. Those things are all it's like that, but those things are all describable. Yes. But I would just say, don't be afraid of that part, because amidst all of the fabricated conditioned things, there are things that are important to be afraid of. Yeah. There are scary, horrible, difficult things. But turning our minds and hearts in this kind of way is not going to a scary, horrible, difficult thing. In fact, now many of us here, all of us who are present here today, who are together on Zoom or watching on YouTube or on Facebook Live, then all have some computer familiarity. Yes? So for your device, the devices can do a lot of things. Sometimes it's good to shut them down. And the way that they're built, many times, when you do the hard shutdown, then there's a way of like getting back to the original program. And then you turn it back on again, and somehow it's fixed itself. We don't know. If we're not computer programmers and computer designers, we don't know how it did that. But we use these things and then we know it works like that. It's like it's getting weird. And all of us as meditators also, we know we can feel ourselves like we need to have the time to just stop and to just come back into ourselves and just become present and to defrag ourselves. And it's a step in like going back to, taking refuge or entering into our original program. It's just something deeply, deeply wholesome and beautiful and excellent and natural that we all have built-in capabilities for. And what I'm talking about with this as well. It's something that is, say, innate, essentially part of what it is to be human, or what it is to be a sentient being with awareness, is that we have this in us, and that when we reflect back in this kind of way, and when we take that step, there's a way that our system can like do a deep shutdown, and then it's like, then what's there with the senses that we experienced before with our meditation, mindfulness of the body and breath, and our eyes becoming so much more clear, and our ears becoming so much more clear, and our bodies and our whole neurological system feeling like it's healed itself, somehow bathed and healed, bathed with the inner bathing. And we feel so refreshed and so much better. This is like a deeper level, a deeper stage of this. And it comes with a deeper level of releasing and letting go and opening up, they're the vestiges of our identity. And we work back through this from the exterior identities, bound up with the things like our house, our car, our family members, our relatives, our bills, our electronic devices, all of these things. And then we come back to like coming to the body and what we have invested in our identity in the body, and then like, learning to relate in a different way, and then with our feelings, and then also with our mind. And here we're talking about our mind at a deeper level, and we're also talking about the Dhamma at a deeper level. So we go through the stages or the layers of releasing and unbinding these attachments and afflictions and limitations related to our very limited ideas and sense of identity. So this is like being willing to open this up at a much deeper level with a heart that's interested to see, interested to know. And the part about the sense of the refuge, this process that I've been talking about, how we go into that step by step, stage by stage, that's very important then to really understand this is safe, this is secure, this is not dangerous, this is not harmful. In fact, this is progressively more and more sublime. Really, the Buddha himself said then, like, etang santang, etang panitang. Yes, which means this is peaceful, this is excellent in description of experience, and not only the Buddha himself, but others as well. So I'd like to now take a pause here. And this is the time that we can have some time for discussion before we'll have meditation time. So if anyone has a question that they would like to ask, or something that they would like to share, and I would like to ask to please stay on this topic, basically, this evening, being supported by the qualities of the Buddha, or refuge in the Buddha, recollection of the Buddha, in more or less mundane or super mundane ways. So now is the time that you can ask a question, whether live, if you would like, or if you'd like to ask anonymously, then you can post in the chat. So I see one question here. Also, when you post your question, if you would rather that I not read out your name, please let me know. So Matthew has a question. how does chanting a phrase like Buddho help to develop insight? Great question, wonderful question. And I feel like this is something that one really must see and know for themselves. There are different kinds of knowing. And those who practice regularly with mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the breath, also may know at some point that this starts to seem, sublime. Those who practice with samadhi and jhana may also notice that then some other kinds of intuitive awareness also may start to develop. Because it's not only that we see and know things inside ourselves. Anyway, insight seems like it's talking about something inside ourselves, insight, right? Like seeing inside ourselves. And yes, we see things inside ourselves that we never knew before, things that were subconscious that now become conscious, things that were even unconscious before that now we start to be able to see and know further and further. So really this is a path of self-realization or self-knowledge. But also with these practices, if we practice in accordance with the sutta teachings, then we're asked not only to be looking just inside, but also to be working with these contemplations outside, with the elements and the great elemental properties, or even like if we talk about the body and mindfulness of the body and like hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, or like skeleton or this kind of thing, really properly, the early Buddhist teaching is saying, look at this body that you think is your own body, and then look at the others and regularly look at all of them. And it's like that head hair, even if you have a shaven head here, and head hair is still there growing and growing, and body hair, nails, teeth, skin, to really get a perception of that in all the beings that have these things, or the earth element internally and externally, the great, the solid, liquid, gaseous, spacious properties of heat internally and externally. And even, with the breath, also when we practice with the breath and the relationship to the air element, we become very much aware of like this breath is not only inside, and it's not only just right here or right here, but like where's the boundary, right? For all of these elemental qualities. So likewise with this Buddha, Buddho, when we work with this in this way, we learn things about ourselves. We learn so many things. We shouldn't just think, just as with practicing with mindfulness of the body and breath, we're taught to not be so attainment minded, that it's like if we have something coming up other than the breath, we're doing it wrong, we've failed. No, not just that. You don't learn anything like that. In terms of gaining insight, to be willing to see and know what arises and whatever arises, and then also the seeing and knowing it, and the practice of letting go then allows deeper and deeper things to come up, and allows the process of insight to deepen. And when we practice in this like internal, external way, sometimes we realize the things and we gain the insight through seeing it with someone else. It happens. We see it with someone else, and then we realize, wow, that is really ignorant. Right? Haven't you all experienced that? But then if you turn that reflection back to yourself, then you may then realize often quite quickly, like, how many times have I done that too? And then you recognize that you gained that insight about this thing, this dynamic, this dysfunctional coping mechanism, whatever it may be. You gained that looking carefully, attentively, reflectively at someone else, but then you turned it right back to yourself again. Yes, or you discover something in yourself, and then you can see how that's happening with others. So this is how it goes, both ways. Yes. And with the Buddha also, it's very much a process. It's a process. There's so much that we then come to see and know that comes from when you think you're not doing it perfectly in the same kind of way, because that is perfect in the path of practice. These are the things that we are meant to learn from and to gain progressive insight from, and also then to develop. We develop in so many ways through this process, but it's not like a sports competition or something. Yeah, so it's not like that. The attainment is not in being able to like recite Buddha without thinking about something else 10 times or like this, right? It's not that. That's not what it's all about. Yeah, we may get and work with an exercise like that, like to see can we do that or not. But what happens during that time is where generally where the insight is then gained progressively. And as we deepen in these practices, then again coming back to the jnana, or the knowing, sometimes called also intuitive awareness. So this is not like an intellectual fabrication, but we have access to different types of knowing. Even when the Buddha was describing his own awakening experience in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, setting into motion the wheel of the Dhamma, then there's a whole list of qualities, and people ask, like, how are these qualities different? Chakung udapati, like a vision arose. What's next? Oh, my community here who's recited this so many times. Chakung udapati. Jnana udapati. And even it's hard in English, because you could say for each one, like wisdom arose, wisdom arose, wisdom arose, wisdom arose, wisdom arose, or knowing arose, or understanding, but they're all these different words, and they are actually reflecting different ways that we see and know, different faculties, or different levels or kinds of seeing and knowing. There are 5 of them that are repeated over and over again in this teaching, like they're all coming on for the full spectrum of the seeing and knowing that's there in the Buddha, becoming Buddho, becoming fully awake. Yes, I hope that is helpful. So then, from Rachel, Patipada, can you expand on your example of when things slow down by applying it specifically to the breath and experiencing the gap between the in and out breaths? So sure, we can apply that to the breath, or we can apply that to other forms of mindfulness of the body. We can apply that even to the Buddho practice that I was talking about. We can even apply that to the chanting of the Itipiso. Often people have the experience when their mindfulness and clear comprehension becomes stronger, that it seems like time and space slow down and open up. Often it feels like things are going by in a flash, like days, months, years go by in a flash. And the things get all blurred and all like crunched together somehow. And it's hard to see clearly, hard to distinguish things. It feels like it's, can sometimes be hard to get an edge in. No, what is it? Get an edge on our experience. Get in, to be able to gain access. Like we have to, some people feel it's like they almost have to wrestle and like break in to get into their experience, because it's all just going like the train cars are just like bumping up against each other so fast. And there's this sense of everything being so compacted. And as we slow down and as we attend to the body, attend to the breath, or attend to the Buddha, or chanting repetitively over and over again in this kind of way, with like not being attainment minded, not being like I have my mala, my rosary with 108 beads, and I'm aiming to recite 108 times, and then I'm like, okay, I'm one more, like that. You know, you can go through, and maybe there's some benefit to it. You may feel more calm afterwards, or have a sense of I don't know, more holiness, but I feel like for the slowing down and opening up of the things, it's better to stop counting and to let go of that type of process. I had a funny experience years ago that I may have, someone might have heard me mention it before, but I had come from India to Hong Kong because I was offered a cheap ticket to Hong Kong. Hong Kong or Bangkok. So I was in Hong Kong, and then I was invited because, anybody in robes is a teacher, right? Even though I'm in my 20s and just come out of India. But I was invited to a meditation group in Hong Kong, and then to give a talk. And something happened like during that meditation time. That time we did not have digital clocks. We had TikTok clocks. So I was sitting for meditation, and I had set in my mind the time that I was supposed to then ring the bell and then start to talk with the people. And so then I felt like it was getting to be that time at a particular point. So I started to come out of the meditation, and then I heard this sound that was like, tick, and then tick, tick. So loud and so strange. What is this? Right? My eyes were still closed at that time. So I was listening to this, and even what I just did now is like faster and not as expanded and kind of echoey and profound and strong as at that time. And so then I was wondering, what is this? And then it started to dawn on me. And at the same time as it started to dawn on me, then I opened my eyes and I was looking at the clock, and I saw the second hand of the clock. I mean, the second hand going like this. And so each one of those was like 1 second. Now, the reason that this was really kind of interesting and profound is because we have these experiences where it seems like time has expanded or slowed down or almost even stopped. And yet this time I could see it on the clock. That was how long, in terms of moments of awareness, from my sense of like how much time and space there was like that big and that long for 1 second. Wow. Yeah. So it happens like that, even more than that sometimes, to the point of feeling like you've come to absolute, stop in some moments, like the whole world seems to have just stopped and just completely opened up. So many of you are meditators, so you may be familiar with having these kinds of experiences time by time. So probably it's not something unfamiliar to you. And yes, of course, like looking for the gap between the breaths, then it's a method actually for attending to the in-between spaces. And when you attend to that, then there's the way that then you can access that opening up. But you don't have to use that method for it. Also, even without that method, attending to the breath, there's also the time that it seems like, the breaths become very, very subtle, or even it seems like the breath has then disappeared and like time and space is just opened up. So that's even without that method, but that method is taught. It's something that you can do that can help some people to like open up and attend to that space, the gap, the in-between space. And really for that gap, sometimes in the metaphoric language, you talk about the wheel of samsara, not only the Dhamma wheel, but like the crashing tines of the wheel of samsara. And like there's, it's just crashing down all the time. But when we slow down in this kind of way, it's said that then the spinning wheel, the crashing tines of the wheel of samsara, that you're able to see through, you're able to find the gap, access the gap, to pass through, right? So this is just some traditional language that's used to describe that, but it means that you have the time and the space to be able to see and know, and then also to be intentional about how you engage, how you're engaging, whether choosing to do something or not do something, what kind of intention you bring to bear upon the contact, all of that. You have the time and space to work with that. It's opened up. You've opened it up for yourself. So then, anonymous question. Do these inner states you speak of with words like emptiness or nothingness ever become boring? Is it a place one would want to stay forever? Is it ever lonely? Oh, this is very easy. Absolutely not. These states that I'm talking about, never boring. They are so fresh, so fresh and rejuvenating, and so pure and beautiful and sublime and wonderful. No, never boring. It's not like the kind of emptiness. Boring happens when you want to be grasping something and you want some kinds of experiences and you're not getting them, right? Or the experience that you're getting, you don't like, you don't want, so you're rejecting it, and you don't feel like, that craving and consuming. Your craving is not really being met in the way that you wish for, and so then you want to disengage because you're not getting what you want. But then that's there's if you're looking for objects of gratification and you're not finding them, then it's boring, right? It's not interesting, because what you want for your interest is your objects of gratification, whether it's something for your mouth or something for your eyes or something for your ears or some kind of physical touch like that, and you're not getting it, so it's boring. Your craving is not being satisfied. It's a different thing entirely. Yeah, this is almost the antithesis. Why do I say almost? Because in fact, we have different kinds of desire and craving. And this is like drinking a very deep draught of the Dhamma, something that is so, profound and beautiful and excellent and sublime. And it satisfies craving in a different kind of way. Even if we compared the craving to a fire that's always burning, like a little bit, then, you know, it's like the feeling of freshness and coolness when, you know, that fire meets the draught of the beautiful, clean, clear water, and that fire goes out in a very mundane way. I remember there's a temple that I stayed at for a while, and I like to meditate in the main hall, and people were coming to offer candles and incense in that hall from morning until night, day after day after day. So I'd see them come, and it's beautiful. They'd, you know, bring just like endlessly candles and incense and flowers, and candles and incense and flowers, and candles and incense, and, you know, it's burning. Candles are burning, the incense is burning, and they're coming and praying and meditating and chanting and all of that. So then I like to stay in that hall. I requested if I could have the duty in the hall to, like, when everyone left, to be sure that everything was turned off safely at the end of the day, or really like the end of the night. And I just remember, this is very mundane, but sometimes there are like mundane associations that are proper. I just remember, you know, how beautiful and how devotional and how lovely all of those candles were. And then what I felt in my heart at the time that the last candle that had been offered burned out. And then it was just dark, cool in the hall, but so sublime. It's like many of these prayers, desires, wishes, aspirations, it's like the candle that was lit, that incense that was lit with that, now it has burned down, and it has burned out. A kind of nibbana. Yes, it's not so deep, not so profound. And yet the Buddha used this analogy as well. And there's something, it's like the cooling, the release, the unbinding, and the not having that kind of seeking in the heart that is motivating all of those prayers and devotions and all of this. Yes, the refuge in the Buddha is different than this. At least in the way that the Buddha was recommending it. According to how we practice with these things, there will be different effects, different results. So, yeah, not boring, and absolutely the opposite of lonely also. You know, lonely is really dependent upon our sense of self and others. And when those disappear in this kind of way, the kind of, all the kinds of related feelings related to self and other, those also disappear. And I'll just say it seems then like they're progressively less and less like there's anything missing, and more depth of joy, profound and sublime joy and happiness. Barbara, you would like to comment. Would you like to now yourself, or would you like me to read what's here?
Yes, I'm not sure even anymore what my comment is. This has been so rich, and you offer so much. So I've decided that actually I may not even have a question, that a lot of what's happening for me is the teaching by osmosis. It's just, it's not even the words. So I'm kind of delighting in that. And it's feeling a little uncertain for me in terms of my own awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, experiencing awakening as a penetration, which is a new word for me in terms of what I know or don't know. And it's penetration into, it's not even emptiness, it's just nothing. And part of me wants to, if you can follow that kind of experience, I want to do that. But there's the part of me that's very afraid of that also.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that is where the temptation is to go to the fabrication, which I think I do successfully all the time. But I'm understanding you really started off with, don't miss the refuge, be here.
Right.
Don't go to the fabrication.
Yeah, we have to check ourselves and really ask ourselves, what are these fabrications doing for us? Are they really doing for us what we hope they will? Can they really offer what we think? And what do we know about what they've given us during our whole life, what they've done for us? And to just be really honest and clear about that for ourselves, understanding that they are not the only option. They're not the all of it. Although in a way, in the Buddhist teaching, of course, it's all the fabrications are called the all. So it's like, then you're talking about what's unconditioned, and then you're talking about something else. So I'm realizing now, even though I have a big clock put up in front of me, I put on my reading glasses, and then I can't see the big clock when I have them on, but now I can see it.
Thank you. Okay.
So because it's a big clock. So I want to now come to an end with our question and answer time. And I just want to recognize, before we go to meditation again, our venerables from Germany, from Ananja Vihara here with us, and friends from around the world, many old friends and new friends, and just glad to see all of you. And I would like now to go to the meditation time for the next few minutes, and then we'll just close with a blessing. I think probably the nearly full moon is beginning to rise here outside now. In fact, it could be even considered the full moon by now. Tonight, early this morning, will be completely full. During the night, there will be an eclipse in California time, I think from 1:30 to about 6 a.m. There will be a full lunar eclipse of the Vesak full moon, flower moon. And so here we are together now, and to just come back into ourselves more, into our sitting posture, and to think about for a moment what we've been reflecting on our topics, what may have stood out for us in terms of meaning. Give ourselves a chance to reflect upon that. Did we understand something in a moment? Was there something that we wish to look into more deeply in our meditation? Even we can use the memory of the image of the Buddha. If we think about like here we are sitting, we have a sense of the form of our body, sitting for meditation, sitting in a posture like the Buddha, with that sense of form, then also within that, to recollect the most beautiful, sublime image of the Buddha that we've ever seen, that we remember. What qualities about that were special, that seemed particularly appropriate, right, for that to be a Buddha image. We can see, if we're able to see that, like that image of the Buddha within our own sense of our own bodily form. And just notice that this is our mind making the fabrication of the image of the shape of our body. Also, fabrication of the shape of that Buddha image. But we don't need to make that image so strong. We don't need to nail it down in our visual imagination. It's okay to see it in flux. It's transitory. With parts of the image coming in and out of existence. Now what we're looking for actually is that heart quality of mind and heart, that we recognized something that seemed, what is it about that made that seem to really be like a good reflection of the Buddha. If we can, to tune into that quality itself, and let the visual image change however it does, break up, just become light or color or nothing. That sense of Buddha, Buddho. Allow ourselves to feel that recognition through our various senses. Heart, mind, body. What happens with our feelings? Does our mind seem expansive, contracted, bright? Or if we know the story of the Buddha's awakening, what happened, how he expressed his experience, that of members of the Sangha, encountering the Buddha, encountering the Dhamma, and awakening. What happened? In our hearts, we recognize this. We know this deeply. Giving time, space, now, attention and care, turning to that knowing. Not to grasp anything. Really, it's an opening, bringing our attention, our awareness, seeing and knowing quality. And allowing ourselves to give that attention. Not for grasping. For some people, this might be immediately sublime, beautiful, and excellent. For others, it might be very quickly frustrating. Just recognize what is our experience. And patiently, if we see the grasping come up, like a cat with its hair standing up and like combing it down, petting it, can put down the grasping. That grasping is aiming for satisfaction, but that's not the way it's found in this case. The opposite is needed, like a hand that can grasp or can open. We turn it the other way into opening. Patiently, delicately. If we lost the thread, we come back to the story, the image. What was that? What is that? What we sensed. What we experienced when we knew what we knew. When it's in the periphery, it's easy to recognize, like beginning with the breath. When we turn towards it, how can we turn towards it in a way that's not chasing it away? It doesn't make it hide. As if we were to make friends with an cute, shy, lovable animal, being patient, waiting for it to come out. With our loving kindness and care. If we attend to this refuge, if we attune to it again and again, it becomes easier, more clear. Sometimes in sitting meditation, sometimes when bowing, when we're bowed down, and this release can happen sometimes. When we bow, when we put our palms together sincerely, wholeheartedly, before our heart, at our third eye, at the top of our head, what we know is most sacred. Safe and secure refuge for all beings. Entering into abiding in that refuge. Centering ourselves, reorienting ourselves in that refuge. Relaxing, releasing, opening with this quality of Buddho. awakened awareness. And be sure to allow yourself to breathe into it. Not hold your breath. Unless you find that your breath has naturally stopped. Be sure to allow these perceptions to be able to spread and pervade the body, mind and heart, all aspects of our being, not separated off. Buddha. What is this? Something that's wonderful to give long hours to. Again and again. To explore. Get to know very, very well. Deeply. And experience the depths and profundity of it for ourselves. So for our monastic community here now, I'd like to invite you to join me in sharing a blessing with everyone with our week of Vesak. Then we have more wonderful programs tomorrow night, late night. If you'd like to join me late night for Hawaii. 10 to 11:30, and then late meditation. Welcome to join for anything else. What would you like to chant for blessing now? Short. All right. What would you like to chant? Buddhanusati? Which Buddhanusati? Oh, that long one? 6 minutes.
We could chant it's out of order, but we could chant Buddha and Saranam Gacchami.
Sure. I have a wonderful idea for my Sopana. This is very simple, so easy. Buddhang Saranam Gacchami. Buddhang Saranam Gacchami. Buddhang Buddhang saranang gacchami. 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 Buddhang saranang gacchami.